two, one, action.
Hi everyone, this is Victoria Wolders, and I'm wanting to welcome you to my Kids Locker Empathy Tales podcast. And today we are going to be doing a lovely empathy tale called The Tale of the Three Brothers. And this has some personal connection to me. This story involves three brothers, and it involves the eldest brother and the youngest brother, and their switching of their jobs. And what happens is we have the youngest brother look at the oldest brother and see his job, and the oldest brother looks at the youngest brother's job and thinks it's easy. And so the eldest brother chooses to switch jobs and says, I want your job instead of my job. And so the eldest brother ends up doing the job of going to the village, and the youngest brother ends up doing the job of mending and tending to the fields. And for me, I find that there are times in my life where I have chosen to do different jobs, different activities that at first I did because I thought they were better. I thought that they were something that was probably more beneficial for me. But after a while, I realized that my gifts and talents weren't there, that my gifts and talents were in, for me personally, teaching. I wonder sometimes if you felt that way sometimes. Have you felt that you've done a job or an activity and after months and months and months realized that, maybe this isn't where my giftings are, where my talents are? Some people have that for their lifetime. They choose a particular employment that really their giftings and talents don't match with, or maybe they just can't, they aren't able to do what they want to do. So this is an example, or this tale is an example of that journey of two individuals, one in particular, the eldest brother, being envious and jealous of his youngest brother, and how he came to do his job and the results at the end. So I want you to think about a few things when you're listening to this story. I want you to think about how this applies to you, but also I want you to think about your life. Do you think there are times where you feel that you're doing something because you're jealous of another person, or you're envious of another person? What are the reasons why you're doing a job that you're doing? Well, with that, I hope that you enjoy this beautiful tale about the three brothers, and that you take some time to think about your own goals, as well as what it means to be empathetic, what it means to be compassionate. And in the story, there's also some aspects of neglect and what that means. And neglect meaning that, not caring, right? So with all of that said, I hope that's given you a few things to think about. And I hope that you are comfortable. And I hope that you enjoy this empathy tale, The Three Brothers. Story told on April 24th, 2018. The roots of all goodness lie in the soil of appreciation for goodness. And that's from the Dalai Lama. Once upon a time, there lived three sons and an elderly father in a small cottage. These three brothers lived in a valley within the Oak and the Eagle Kingdom. They lived in a Welsh countryside and lived far away from the closest village. The oldest brother was strong, and he would often be the one who would carry the heavy load of wood. He was proud of who he was and who his family was. This brother would often be the one waking up early and then off to the field to harvest and sow the seed. The second brother enjoyed spending time with the animals on the farm. He worked with the pigs, cattle, and horses. He had success in raising animals. Many villagers knew of his reputation, and he was highly respected. The third one was the social one. The son took the task to go to the village weekly. There he would connect with the villagers. There were benefits for his warm personality. He grew an understanding of what the people were going through and was able to have shared experiences with his community. He had empathy, and it was empathy that was the lifeline to the outside world for these three brothers and their father. The father saw his son's strengths and recognized that they each had amazing characteristics. These strengths would enable their family to grow, survive, and live in this remote area. The father appointed the eldest brother to be in charge of the largest fields. They had hectares of land. Every season, this one faithful son prepared the land and succeeded every season. Every August, he harvested the fields, and every season, this faithful son prepared the land and succeeded. The second was given the responsibility of looking after the animals. He enjoyed spending time with the animals. The third son enjoyed his treks to the village. He was energetic. He connected with those who surrounded him. The people in the village grew to know this young man and enjoyed his personality and character. He was generous. The oldest brother would be on the field, and he would look at his other brothers, and he would be angry. He would often look at his youngest brother leaving for the village in clean clothing and would think to himself, "Look at me. I am here trolling the soil as my brother goes off to the village. This isn't fair." That night, he decided that he deserved his youngest brother's job. The next morning, he approached his father. The eldest brother spoke firmly. "I deserve to pick any job I want to. I am the eldest, and it is time for me to change jobs." The father, in all his wisdom, knew the strengths of his sons. The father understood why his son felt this way. The second son and the youngest came into the room. The old man announced to the three sons, "It is time for us to switch roles. My oldest son would like to move into my youngest son's job. For this season, we will attempt to try another man's role." "Father, do you mean putting your shoes in another man's shoes?" replied the youngest son. The father nodded patiently. The second son jumped up and gently added, "I love my animals, and I love the role you selected for me, Father. I would like to stay here." The father replied to the second son, "Why not take time to learn about your brother's roles in the coming weeks? It will give you an opportunity to see their duties and their roles." The second son agreed and was content with the decisions to visit the other two as they switched roles. As the winter was turning into spring, the decision was made to switch roles. The youngest brother said to the oldest brother, "I have a very important job, and I know your job is important too. Can you write down what I need to know about our fields, and I can tell you all you need to know about our village and our villagers?" The eldest agreed, yet had some discontent in his thoughts. The eldest brother was resentful. For all these years, he had been working so hard physically, while the youngest got to socialize and prance around the village. In a quick response from the eldest brother, he replied, "Yes, there. was a scheduled meeting arranged the next morning with the two brothers. The eldest was eager to move into his new role, and his plan was to never return to the fields again. These are the things you need to know. Winter, spring, summer, and autumn all have their personalities, joys, and pains. You have to make sure that you till the soil in the spring. You need to pull the weeds at the proper time, as well as sow the seed at the proper time. If you are unable to make the soil fertile, then there will be no food for us to eat. Make sure the insects and pests are dealt with and you are not neglectful. Harvesting is important. Always remember to look after our fields. The youngest brother started to feel resentful for the way the eldest was talking to him. My big brother seems to be thinking his job is more important than mine. He might even have an easier job than me, he thought to himself. The brother noticed he started to feel resentful and began to empathize with his eldest brother. He thought to himself, I wonder what it would be like to work the fields every day and night. It must be hard. With the youngest son's empathy, he did not feel hurt anymore, but overcame it with the ability to empathize with his exhausted and tired eldest brother. The eldest brother turned to the younger and quickly snapped, What do I need to know about your job? The younger brother sat down and began to share his thoughts. When you go into the village, there are areas on the road that are not maintained well. So when you pull your cart, you will need to be very careful of where you are pulling it. He continued, You have to make sure when you see the fork in the road, you stay to the right of it. There will be a number of times when the left looks like the better road, but I warn you, do not go down the left path. The ditches and potholes are too big for the little cart to maneuver through. You need to choose wisely. Be aware of the weather and be aware of any strangers on the road. The first place you will need to go in the village marketplace is the village marketplace. Meet with Mrs. Fields as she will give us fruits and vegetables we are unable to grow on our garden. She has 3 children. Her 3 children are not well. The eldest was injured and does not walk. The second child coughs and is challenged with her breathing. The third child is blind. Every day I go to the village and I ask her how her 3 children are doing. She always gives us more food than we can afford to. Yet she is kind and compassionate and her compassion was amazing. I appreciate her. The second place is the butcher, and Mr. McTavish is there. His wife is sick. Please ask how his wife is doing. He is lonely, and I truly believe I may be the only one that knows of his deep sadness. As you leave the village, never forget to go to the cathedral to see Father John. Remember, Father John will help us with giving us clothing. His unconditional love and his care is deep and beautiful. We have a beautiful community. After the long discussion about the relationships and the connections, the eldest brother said, Yeah, fine. Your job looks so easy compared to mine. This should be fine for me. The eldest wrote down some information, but forgot to write down the names and the specifics because he was convinced it was not necessary. The next day, the eldest brother slept in and decided to get ready to go to the village. The eldest brother left the house when the sun was in the mid-sky, and as he went along, he realized this was such a simple job compared to his duties on the field. He could see his youngest brother in the field, and the eldest laughed at him, thinking to himself, I think this is going to be a better life for me. The eldest showed up at the market. Mrs. Fields is there, and she is curious why. She sees her friend's brother. "Oh, my dear, where is your brother?" the old lady whispered. "We have switched jobs, and I am the new hired help to do this easy job," the eldest brother replied in a bitterly cold way. The old lady was surprised and stumbled upon her words. "I think that I have some fruits and vegetables for you. Here you go." The man grabbed the bags and quickly went on his way because he knew if he got his duties done at the marketplace, he could find a bed and sleep. "It's all about getting these tasks done," he snorted to himself. He moved swiftly to the butcher and saw Mr. McTavish behind the counter. "Hello, I would like some of that meat," as he pointed to some slabs of red meat in the corner of Mr. McTavish's wagon. Mr. McTavish greeted the young man and began to walk with him as if he knew him. Of course, the butcher had made the mistake of switching the brothers. So the eldest just stood there, thinking to himself, why does my brother put himself through the pain of listening to this man? The eldest brother left Mr. McTavish talking about his wife in an abrupt way because he couldn't stand listening to him, and he felt like he had to go to the cathedral. As he waltzed into the cathedral and he bumped into the father, he was surprised to see how lowly he was and how old the man was. Here, he was a strong young man, and this father chose a life of being in these four walls. The eldest brother just did not get it. He shared a brief hello with the father and then glided into a pew where he mumbled a quick prayer. The youngest son was out in the field. He was delighted that he was out in the field. He was grateful of this wonderful opportunity. As spring turned into summer and the eldest brother began to forget about asking Mrs. Fields how her children were doing, Mr. McTavish, how his wife was, and seeing Father John and praying at the cathedral. As the months went on, the butcher looked sick, and the eldest brother didn't know what to say anymore. He didn't want to ask him how he was doing. He was not the man to pry. In turn, he decided to just make his quick order and leave swiftly. Over summer and autumn, the eldest brother began to sleep in more and thought to himself, I can get these jobs done quickly and then go back to my cottage to sleep and rest. I can do the job in less than an hour, and my younger brother took 3 hours. He is so inefficient with just talking to others. I just don't understand what the point is. The youngest brother was sad that he wasn't able to connect with his friends. He was away from the life he loved, and he knew his brother wasn't doing his job properly. He became resentful for being in the fields, and he yearned for connecting with his past relationships. His eldest brother just didn't have the words and emotions to connect with others like he did. It was winter, and the fields were now dormant, but the eldest brother still expected to go into town. The youngest brother would talk to his eldest brother, and he heard his brother's discussion with the villagers. To the youngest brother, it felt like a cloud of smoke floating into the room that suffocated the rest of the family with its social ignorance. The eldest brother started to forget the details of his younger brother's job and began to not care about the cart and the villagers. He chose to not see any other villagers and go into the village and then come out of the village. There was darkness in his heart, and he became disgruntled with the long walk to the village. The second brother felt sick and was unable to do his job. The eldest brother and the youngest brother turned to each other. They replied, "We are not doing your job. We already have enough on our hands learning this job." The youngest brother then went to the father. The father looked into the eyes of his youngest, saying, "What has happened to my children? Ungratefulness is full of my 2 sons' hearts, becoming blinded by their arrogant pride. There is a lack of compassion and lack of empathy with my eldest son as well." As the middle son went to sleep, the father tried his best to maintain the animals while his middle son was healing from his sickness. The family realized when winter hit that they didn't have enough the stored vegetables and fruits they used to have. They also missed the clothing which would have been given to them from Father John. So the father went to the eldest brother and asked him what had happened in the last 2 seasons that led to a bare storage room. "Help me understand why this has happened, my son. Tell me the stories of your friends you have in the village." The son replied, "I don't really care about Mrs. Fields, Mr. McTavish, or Father John. They are just people who are so needy. I have forgotten about Mr. McTavish. He can deal with his own issues. As for Father John, I really don't have the time for him. Because of your choices and lack of connection, we are poor. We have missed the rich value to relationships because of your choice to make a quick trip in. We suffer due to your loss of connection. You have pulled away from empathy, compassion, and care, and in turn have depleted us of our needs. With that, our family has now had to deal with our repercussions." The youngest son walked in at this time and began to complain. "We have no food or clothing because of the eldest brother's choice to change jobs. If only he had just left it the way it was, then they would be comfortable for the winter. I hate that he made me do this. I hate that I have to be in this situation." The father paused graciously and gently whispered to them, "Do you realize that the darkness has seeped into your heart, and that it is because of your inward looking that it has affected our family? My second son, your brother, is sick, and I have tried to do his job. Our fields have grown barren. Sons, your jealousy, envy, and pride has sowed into your hearts." The brothers looked at each other. Tears filled both of their eyes. The hate, the anger, and the frustration that resonated in their hearts had created a shell over their minds, over their words, and into their actions. The insidious pride had enticed their hearts, and there was darkness. The brothers' hearts turned cold like the winter's night they were wrapped in. Somewhere they heard the second brother coming down the stairs, who was sick, and he said, "Look at the beautiful fire. Look at the walls around us. I am grateful for what we have and who we are as a family. We are beautiful. We are broken in many ways, yet within this brokenness, we can see the light, however so small it is. We can get over this and go through it. Brothers, I urge you to dig deep and to choose kindness, to bring life back into each other's hearts. For all of us to be grateful to God for the goodness we have. We need gratitude and celebration of our skills. The eldest brother and the youngest brother shared. There was a change of heart. The brothers decided to switch their jobs back, and although that winter was cold and dark, there was hope. In the darkness came a light of gratitude of the skills each brother brought to his family. They recognized each other's strengths and weaknesses. Through love, care, and compassion, there once again was gratitude within their family. In the end, they realized the importance of compassion, empathy, and love. Thank you so much for joining us today for the story of the three brothers. If you'd like to learn more about me and our stories and my blogging and the things that I'm interested in, you can come check me out at mykidslocker.com. And this is Victoria Wolders signing off from another empathy tale, creating compassion, one story at a time. Thank you.
3, 2, 1.